Hi, how are you doing? Previous video we covered about the what's inside the function. Okay, so two things are there, arguments and this, and we covered the arguments. We know about the arguments object, which is a great thing. Now let's learn about this. What is this? This is a reference to the execution context. Okay, so we've been learning about execution context, right? Function has its own context, and there is a outer context, which is a window object. That's the global context, right? So this is a reference to the execution context that the function is operating on. Okay, so when a function is called in the global scope of a web page, this points to the window object. So let's see it in an example. For example, let's say window.color equals to, let's say, red. So I have declared this color property to the global context in window. Okay, it's red. Now let me create another variable, another object variable, and this one also will have a color property, and it will have, let's say, blue. Okay, so we have two contexts here. One is a global context where a color property is there with a red value, and I have another object as well which has its own context and its color property. It also has the same color property, but its value is different. Okay, so we have two different contexts already here. Now I create another function, say color again, and this will say console log this color. Okay, so now we have three execution contexts. One is global, one is this object's own context, and one is this function's own context. Now let's say what we see as the output of this function. Say color in X, we see red. Okay, now what if, let's say, object say color, because this is the object, and object we can add properties and methods. You know that, right? For example, if it was a person, we did this before. Variable person, we create object using this object literal. We could have name is something, address is something, things like that. So it's the same pattern. Okay, so this object has the color property. Now I want to add this method. So what I can do is I can simply use the dot notation. So object.sayColor, we're supposed to add this property and then assign the function sayColor. Let's just assign the this function. Okay, so objects say method property has this function. We don't invoke that function yet. What we do next is object.sayColor, and here we invoke the function. Okay, so let's see what we get here. Refresh, and we can see it's blue, because the reason we're saying blue, even though it's the same function we used and this function returned red, so how come we're saying blue? Because when we use this function, when we execute this function, first we assign this function as its method, as a property method, and then we execute that function. Now when we execute, it has its own execution context. Within this context, it has this color property available, so it used this one. So you saw in this example that sayColor and object.sayColor both pointing to the same function, however the result is different. That's because of the different execution context, right? So when you apply this method on object, it became the object execution context. Otherwise, as it's on its own, it became a global execution context. Okay, so we got the different result. So that's important to understand. So simply this means this is a reference to the execution context that the function is operating on. Okay, simple as that. Okay, so we covered arguments, we covered this. Now in the next video we're going to cover some of the function properties and methods. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.